So I know nobody in my Twitch chat cares about Palia, but today I want to talk about the questions and answers for December. Not December, November. These are the questions and answers from November released in December. And the reason we want to talk about them is something on the other end of the spectrum here, which is in my last couple of videos about this, I really complained about how they answered questions. Today, we're going to see a problem with how people ask questions. There's 6 total questions today, and right from the first one, we have a problem. So it starts off, I know dating and marrying NPCs is a thing, but will you be able to marry another player? I'd love to play this game with my partner and share that aspect with them in the game as well as in the real world. Now, I could read their answer, but right away, you might notice that when I type marry into here, it pulls up a lot of these words. But you'll also notice that the word never appears in any answer. Now, what do you think this means? Because to me, this means that the community has decided that something's in the game without actually ever confirming that it's in the game. They point that out very clearly in answer 2. You cannot currently marry NPCs in the game. You can't. It's not a thing. Basically, what happened is they said way back when in June that romance is a feature in the game and you can try to raise a romance level and date. Now, what some people have thought of or have stated or have seeped into their minds is that marriage must be a system in the game because Stardew Valley has it or other farming sim games have it. When really, it's just not a system in the game. You can romance and date NPCs, but you cannot marry them in the current game. Which means right away, our first 2 questions are null and void. They don't matter. And I'm going to skip 3, 4, and 5 because we have another issue of the same thing. Can players share a house together? Asked by multiple people. Now, this question has been repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated for the last 18 months. And the answer has always been, it's on the board of things that we want to work on or are working on, but it's not currently possible. I guess this is more of an answer than some of the other ones because at least they've said, hey, we're working on it, like somewhat actively, but it's still not actually a thing. Okay, question 3, looking at the handful of NPCs currently announced, it seems a very small number even for a village. Will there be other named NPCs that we can friend? And for those wanting to, the possibility of romance, will there be unnamed NPCs added to help make the world alive? And will there be more added down the line as story progresses? Basically, this is 3 questions in one coming from Crystal, or I don't know how to pronounce that. How do you pronounce an X? I don't know. The answer here from the team at Singularity 6 is, let's talk about how we make NPCs and how we want to make NPCs. And it basically boils down to, we have 3 questions here. Will there be other NPCs added that we could friend? And for those wanting to, the possibility of romance. They talk a little bit about how they want to make NPCs or how they go in and strive to make NPCs. They want all the NPCs to have a backstory, to have a feel to them, to have dialogue and story and care put into them, and places to live and schedules and all these things that we've talked about in the past. There will be more NPCs added to the game, mostly post-launch as they expand the world. Because again, MMO, they're going to add new areas of the world. That said, they have a minimum bar of quality for any NPCs. On the other hand, question 2, unnamed NPCs. At launch, they're striving to not have these, but as the game grows and as they get into larger zones, they might add these as like shops or something in the future. Yeah. And will there be more added down the line as the story progresses? Yes. Yes, as we said. Okay, question 4. Some of my greatest experiences in any MMO have been the random encounters with complete strangers. Hi, Nox. You're a stranger, right? Sometimes it's good to have a zone or area chat, but sometimes I just want to talk to people directly in front of me. What kind of chats will be supported? Proximity, text, or voice-based chat? Now, if you've played an MMO before, you probably know why voice chat is a very, 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 very bad idea in an MMO. I'm looking at everyone out there. It is just not a good idea. The team just agrees. So they're working on text-based, and they have a working local chat and zone and community and party chats. It's a very strong basic outline of chats in MMOs. Now, what they're missing are some of the more role-playing chats. The Say chat, which is very proximity-based. Yell chat, which is a wider proximity. Things like that. And I know some MMOs, a lot of MMOs, have custom chat channels, and those 3 are pretty big, which they also did not mention having a world chat, which is a server-wide chat channel in a lot of games. There's a lot of stuff that could be added to the game. An LFG channel. This is, I mean, it's a game with a focus on group content only in the sense that you can explore or you can do like cooking and stuff in a group. It's not a dungeon like fighting game. So I don't know if the LFG channel makes as much sense, but it could. It depends on what they're doing. I feel like there's a lot more they can do with chat. Just a lot more they could do with chat that they're not doing or that they haven't mentioned here. So I'm hoping they experiment and explore a lot more with this. There's a lot of stuff that you're all showing us about the game and the alpha test, which is super exciting. What things did players not enjoy in the play test, and how are their concerns being heard and addressed? So I'm going to spoil it because every time I make a video like this or I talk here, I've read the question about 12 times, formulated my thoughts super well, and then came through and just butchered it. They don't answer this question. They don't. What things did players not enjoy, and how are their concerns being addressed? Instead, they talk about areas that they want to improve on that they felt were good, like providing more community-oriented goals, additional content, better support role-playing, tons of UI and accessibility features. But things that players don't enjoy are things like gameplay loops or UI being a complete mess. And they don't specifically call out anything. Accessibility features, like if they said, a small subset of players really hated that the game doesn't work properly with controller and we're working on getting that fixed for the beta. That would be an answer for this question. They didn't say that. Instead, they come down here and they're like, oh, the team is particularly excited about new quest content that's been added to the game recently, which hasn't been on the alpha. And we also talk a lot about how to best take advantage of the fact that Palia is a massively multiplayer game, which is resulting in a variety of new ways to collaborate, interact, and play together. You guys have talked about how this is a massively multiplayer game while you've completely ignored the fact that 90% of the features that you've been talking about have been in other MMOs before. Matter of fact, you just haven't talked about them. You've been touting them as new features. Things like, I don't know, romance with NPCs in an MMO where gender is not an issue. Have we played Star Wars The Old Republic past 2.0? Companion storylines and romance were a main part of that game. Things like, decorating households and resources and such being a massive part of the housing system. Have we played Star Wars Galaxies in 2004? Things like world traversal and exploration being a main part of the game. Have we played ArcAge? Like, please. Can you at least try MMOs and talk about your influences properly? Oh my goodness. So to summarize, they didn't answer the question. They're still disregarding the fact that hundreds of MMOs have come out before this that they can really easily learn from. Like I've said before, player housing. If they just ripped the decoration system for player housing from Star Wars Galaxies, they would have the best housing decoration system in any MMO in the past 15 years. They're not going to do that, but they would. So this was the November question and answers for Palia. It was. The next ones will be in January. The submit your question things will come up in January, so in a couple weeks now. So hopefully people can learn how to ask questions and not ask the same one a million times and not ask about things that are not in the game.